Hello and welcome to Tap That MTG, the show where we tell you everything we know about Magic the Gathering that's probably wrong, but fun to talk about. We are here with another pre-con deep dive. We are always excited about all of the new commander decks that come out and love
Mhm.
telling you about them. In this video, we're going to break it down, tell you what this deck is meant to do, talk about um, how to play it wisely. And if you wait till the end, we're going to offer up some suggestions for tweaking the deck
Yeah.
and make it even better. But first, we need to know what this deck does as a commander. So, Shauna, who's our commander and what's this deck supposed to do?
So this deck called Upgrades Unleashed is kind of one of those decks where you're going to have some samurai here and you're going to do a lot of damage. Hopefully, you're going to put lots of equipment or enchantments onto your creatures, even just one or two, and do lots of damage. It's a very aggro kind of deck, which red and green is supposed to do, which is very fun. Shishiro, the Shattered Blade, is your commander for two and a red and a green. It is a 4/4 Snake Samurai. Whenever an aura or equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you get to create a 2/2 red spirit creature token with menace. That's going to be aggressive
Mm-hmm.
for every one of those that you put out there. And at the beginning of your end step, put a 1/1 counter on each modified creature. So this is new to this set, this whole modified idea. This is where if you have got an equipment or +1 counters onto a creature, that creature is now modified. So that's what this deck is about. Lots of that.
Mm-hmm.
Leslie, do you want to tell us how the breakdown goes on this deck?
Yeah, I would love to. I do want it because I was asked this question the other day about
Okay.
modification and
Okay.
reading kind of the instructions here on the card. It says equipment auras you control and counters are modifications. So someone asked me if it's not a 1/1 counter, is it still a modification? And the answer is yes, because it doesn't say that a 1/1 counter is a modification. It just says a counter is a modification. So if you put a
Oh,
charge counter or a vigilance counter or a lifelink counter on something, then that is also a modification
right.
to that
Yes.
creature. So this
Thank you for that
particular
clarification.
commander happens to give you 1/1 counters, so it automatically it's the easiest way to modify, and but it's not the only way to modify. So just a little
Right.
note there because someone
Thank you
asked
for
me that
pointing that
question.
out. I
Yeah.
totally missed that. Thank you.
So breakdown of this deck, we have again, as Shauna said, a very aggressive deck. Gosh, I forgot to introduce us. I'm Leslie, and that's Shauna.
And I'm
Anyways,
Shadow.
you
You
kind of
know
know
us.
us. Very aggressive mana curve on this. We have 1 at 1 mana cost, 7 at 2, 21 at 3 mana cost,
Mhm.
16 at 4 mana cost. So a lot of cards that are lower, and then we have 8 at 5, 6 at 6 plus, and then I put a little extra section here with the X mana cost cards because they
Mhm.
usually fit within the 2 or the 1, but they're not really 1 or 2 mana cost. They are X, and so you're gonna probably play them for more. So there's 4 cards in
Mm.
there that could be potentially larger.
Right. Right.
Color breakdown, we have 16 red cards, 8 multicolor, and 9 colorless, but the majority of this deck with 30, so 47% of it is green. So we like our green cards.
We
Card
sure do.
types, we broke down a little bit differently this time. So we have 2 artifacts, 28 creatures, which is great. We like to see a creature deck personally. Uh, 15 instant sorceries, 3 enchantments, and then in the yellow, you'll see things that modify. So we have artifact equipment. There's 6 of those. We have 2 cards that are reconfigure, which we'll explain when we get to those. And we have 7 enchantments. So those are all the cards, which doesn't seem like a lot of cards that modify, but a lot of our creatures or enchantments or sorceries also will have put 1/1 counters on creatures.
Mhm.
And so everything in this deck is going to be modified in some way, shape, or form with a 1/1 counter or something like that, which
Mhm.
is going to have benefits for your
Yeah.
commander. But
Exactly.
before we get down to the nitty gritty of what's in this deck, how do we maybe tell the people, tell the viewers, how we're going to break this down and evaluate?
All right. Well, Leslie found this amazing formula that it seems Wizards follows, and we tend to follow when we're building our own decks. So we evaluate these decks based on this formula. It's been fairly successful in our mind, but so you've got your commander, of course, your one card. Then you've got 15 ramp. So those are cards that get you mana or make your things happen faster. Removal. There's 15 of those, so we love removal. And card draw, about 13 is kind of recommended. And then about 12 high impact cards. Those are cards that are going to win you the game or completely change things up to be in your favor. And then we've got some other about 10 cards that are supporting those win conditions or an alternate win condition. Just kind of stuff that's going to help you along. And then about 34 lands is usually what we try to go shoot for. Mm-hmm. And so we're going to evaluate this deck based on those. So the numbers can fluctuate again depending on what your deck's purpose is. You might need lots of card draw or whatever. So that might change a little bit.
Yeah, so and Leslie, actually this deck is very much doesn't stick to the formula. No. It's so you'll see as we go along, and that's not a bad thing. Like there's been a few decks that have come out that are like, nope, we're just going with the theme and that's all that matters. So just take that as a caveat. That's not a bad thing. It's just how we start the conversation. So mana ramp and generators. Our formula says we should have about 15. This deck has 12. Nothing wrong with that. Our first one is Fertilid. It enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it. So it comes in as a 2/2 for 3, but you can pay 2 and remove a 1/1 counter from Fertilid and search target player, which should be you, searches their library for a basic land card and puts it onto the battlefield tap, then shuffles their library. So it's a nice little 2/2 that then will get you 2 lands later on. So
yeah, and you can keep adding counters and doing more with it if you want to.
Exactly, which is a good point in this deck.
Then we've got Rishkar Pima Renegade for 2 and a green. It's a 2/2 when it enters the battlefield. Put a 1/1 counter on each of up to 2 target creatures. So it's going to help you do that. Then those creatures that have 1/1 counters on them can be green mana, which is very helpful to get you ramped up and get going. Yeah, all that green stuff.
So already the first 2 cards have modification options. Yep. Secure Tribe Elder is a little 1/1 that you can sacrifice and search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. The nice thing about cards like this that sacrifice and allow you to go search is that you can use them as a blocker, and then after blocks are declared you could say, I'm going to sacrifice this now. And if you wait until damage is done, you can't sacrifice it, but you would do it. It's the timing there. Whoever you're playing with should be nice enough to let you do that or help you with that. I know this because Brandon Sanderson, I'm going to name drop, Brandon Sanderson taught me.
Helps you with that?
When I first started playing Magic.
Cool.
Anyways.
That's awesome. Little fangirl going on over there. Kodama's Reach for 2 and a green. It's a commander staple for green stuff. You search your library for 2 basic land cards, reveal them, put 1 on the battlefield tapped and the other into your hand, then you shuffle. It's just one of those green rampy cards that you have to have.
And Rampant Growth for 1 and a green is a sorcery. You can search your library for a basic land card, put that card onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle.
Then we have Vastwood Surge for 3 and a green that has kicker 4, so that means you can pay another 4, so 8 total on top of that. Search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them on the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. But if you kick that spell, so later on in the game, you get to put 2 1/1 counters on each creature you control.
Each.
2 on each creature you control. Think about that.
Suddenly everything's modified.
Yep.
It's worth the extra 4.
Yeah.
Of course, we have 2 staples that you will probably be very familiar with if you play Commander at all. We have Arcane Signet, which is add 1 mana of any color in your commander's color identity. And then the next is Soul Ring. So these are 2 cards that are just great little mana rocks to have in any commander deck.
Yeah. Then Ordeal of Nylea for 1 and a green. It's another kind of green staple, an aura. Especially for enchantment decks. It has enchant creature, and then whenever enchanted creature attacks, put a 1/1 counter on it. Then if it has 3 or more 1/1 counters on it, you sacrifice this enchantment, and when you sacrifice it, you search your library for up to 2 basic land cards. and put them on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. So it's just a really useful little aura that you can bring back later, maybe if you want to or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And hopefully it'll have 3 earlier than when it attacks. So
Yeah, exactly.
Rampant Rejuvenator for 3 and a green is a 0/0. When it enters the battlefield, though, you get to put 2/1/1 counters on it. So it comes in as a 2/2. But when it dies, you search your library for up to X basic land cards where X is its power, then put them onto the battlefield. Onto the battlefield, not tapped, then shuffle.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're modifying and you're putting more 1/1 counters, this is a nice little dude to put them on because you want him to die. And the
Mm-hmm.
bigger he gets, the more people will target him. And when they target, they just give you a bunch of land, which helps you with the ramp. So love
Huge
that
ramp.
card. It's a new one.
Yeah. Tanuki Transplanter, it's a new one too. It's really cute. It's a little crazy, strange equipment dog for 3 and a green, a 2/4, that whenever it or an equipped creature attacks, add an amount of green mana equal to its power. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. So this is one of those reconfigure cards. So reconfigure of 3. So you pay 3 to attach this to a target creature you control or unattach from a creature. So this is a strange equipment, a new style of equipment that can be a creature by itself, and you can also attach it to another creature to make that creature have those benefits. So this could potentially be, you'd be buffing up, you'd be attaching it to some of your bigger creatures to be able to add lots of mana, or you can just use it if that creature dies. You can just use it as a creature by itself later on.
Yeah.
Did I
And we
explain?
did have the question yesterday. If you put a 1/1 counter on it, because it's a creature, for example, and then
Uh,
you attach it to something, does that counter disappear? And no, it doesn't, because it doesn't leave the battlefield or change zones. You only lose your counters if it changes zones or leaves the battlefield for some reason. So because it stays on the battlefield and it's just being attached, then those counters stay on it. However, those counters don't act as a buffer for the creature that you're attaching it to. They're just sitting there for when it becomes a creature again.
mhm.
So, little fun facts.
Yeah,
Uh,
thank you for that clarification.
yeah. Orochi Merge Keeper for 2. It's a little 1/1 that taps for mana. As long as it is modified, it has taps for 2 mana. So you're going to want to put a counter on that one or equipment aura.
Then we're moving into the removal section. The formula calls for 15, and this deck has about 10. So aggro decks tend to have less removal than other decks. But Goblin Raise Runners is our first one. It's a 3/4 for 2 and 2 red. It's a battle bond card in the past, apparently. It is a Goblin Warrior that you can pay 1 and a red and sacrifice a land, put a 1/1 counter on Goblin Raise Runners. At the beginning of your end step, you may have Goblin Raise Runners deal damage equal to the number of 1/1 counters on it to target player or planeswalker. So you may or may not want to even swing with this. You might want to just keep it as a blocker and then just do damage with it at the end step. Like, who cares? It doesn't have to swing to do the damage that its power is, right?
Yeah,
It's crazy.
it is crazy. Acidic Slime is a nice little green staple for 3 and 2 green. It's a 2/2. Not only does it have Death Touch, which is good for removal later or slowing them down, when it enters the battlefield, you get to destroy target artifact, enchantment, or land. So it has some options for you
Mm-hmm.
to destroy something. Timing is important, of course. You want to make sure that you have targets. I don't know how many times we've been playing with our pro players. And you play a card and you're like, oh shoot, no one has anything that I can target with this. Well, I didn't think about that very well. So think about it before you play.
Yeah, we may have done that at the odd time. Oh gosh. Then we've got the Whip Tongue Hydra. You may have seen that card around before in previous decks. It's a 5 and a green that has reach as a 4/4, which is nice for poor me with all the flyers always coming at me. And when it enters the battlefield, destroy all creatures with flying. Pachoo, pachoo. And
I'm
put 1/1
surprised you
counter.
don't have like 14 of these.
I know I should. I really honestly should. Um, Destroy all creatures with flying. You get to put a 1/1 counter on Whip-Tongue Hydra for each creature destroyed this way. So wouldn't this be great if Shauna played this more against Leslie, folks? Wouldn't it? It would be.
No, Leslie would be sad. Alashed the Hate Seed for 2 and a green and a red is a 0/0. But it enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter for each other red creature you control and a
Mhm.
1/1 counter for each other green creature you control. So in this deck, it basically enters for each creature you control with an extra 1/1 counter. You can pay 1 and remove a 1/1 counter from it and choose to either do a damage to target creature or create a green sapperling creature token. So it has options. It comes in with a whole bunch of counters. Um, we put it in the removal just because it has that 1 damage to target creature, and you can pay that as many times as you want. So if it comes in with 20 counters, you can choose to pay the next time, if you have land for it, those, let's say 10 to be more reasonable. You can pay those 10, remove 10 counters, and do 10 damage to something that's big. So it has options there.
Mhm. Definitely. Chain reaction for 2 and 2 red. This is a red board wipe that you've probably seen before. It's a card that I don't know if I like playing because I like my creatures so much
Yeah,
because it affects your creatures too.
gonna
But
kill them all.
sometimes desperate times call for desperate
Yeah.
measures, so you need that board wipe. It's a sorcery that deals X damage to each creature, where X is the number of creatures on the battlefield. So yeah, it's gonna kill a lot of stuff.
It's
If
gonna
that
it's
battlefield
gonna
is
do
out
a
of
board
control,
wipe. But do your math first, because there's nothing worse than saying, okay, I'm going to do this board wipe. I'm sure it's going to kill everything. But then when you figure out the math,
yeah,
that person that's the problem still has their
the
stupid
great big thing.
champion of Lambot out, Shauna, and you don't. Or that could be to your benefit too. Decimate sorcery. This one is great because it destroys target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target
And
land.
decimating. Chaos Warp. This is another card that we had a discussion about because I often don't like this card. I often don't play this card, but
Risky.
maybe I should play it more. It's for for 2 and a red. It's an instant. The owner of target permanent shuffles it into their library, then reveals the top card of their library. If it's a permanent card, they put it on the battlefield. So it's pretty risky, but you could get rid of something big and they get a land
Yeah.
as well.
Or get
So
rid of something like a sapperling of yours
yeah,
and
true.
get
You could do that
trade it
too.
for
Yeah.
something if you really want.
If you know what
Usually
that
it's
card
to
is,
get rid of their
especially.
removal. Yeah. Star Storm. It deals X damage to each creature. So this is another potential boar wipe. You can pay X and 2 red. It also has cycling, which is nice because you can use it to draw a card if you don't want to do that board wipe or you don't need that at that time, but you do need a card draw. You can pay 3 and discard it and draw a
Mhm.
card.
Beast Within is a nice little instant for 2 and a green that is a green commander staple. Basically, you destroy target permanent, so it could be anything, and its controller creates a 3/3 beast. So just exchange their big monster or their planeswalker for something little, a little 3/3 that you could deal with.
Mhm. And this next one is a new one, and it is a red card that acts like a blue card, which is really weird. Um, Collision of Realms for 6 and a red is a sorcery. Each player shuffles all creatures they own into their library, and then each player who shuffled a non token creature into their library this way reveals cards from the top of their library until they reveal a creature card, then puts that card onto the battlefield and the rest onto the bottom of their library in random order. So, again, it's going to be risky because they are going to get something back from their thing, but if someone is just overwhelming the battlefield, number one, tokens won't get shuffled in, so it will get rid of all of their tokens as
True.
well as all of yours. But it then sets everyone up, and everyone is just like, okay, I have at least one creature. This can change the game, and it may not be in your favor. So may the odds ever be in your favor.
True enough. Oh, then we're moving on to the card draw tutor section. Formula calls for 13. This deck has about 9, we figure, so little lacking there as far as drawing cards goes, we think. Rich Car's expertise, awesome green card draw for 4 and 2 green. Draw cards equal to the greatest power among creatures you control. It's going to be lots, hopefully. You may cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying its mana cost. 2 things in one, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's worth the 6.
Mm-hmm.
Shamanic Revelation for 3 and 2 green is a sorcery. You get to draw a card for each creature you control. And then Ferocious, you gain 4 life for each creature you control with a power 4 or greater. You're going to have a lot of modified creatures. They're likely going to be. So this is going to kind of maybe change the game in your favor, but it's also going to maybe get a lot of cards. Don't do this at the beginning of the game because you'll have to just discard them all, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite cards, that one. Soul's Majesty for 4 and a green. It's a sorcery and draw cards equal to the power of target creature you control. Sure, why not?
Sure, why
For
not?
5.
Exactly.
Sure.
Hunter's Insight for 2 and a green. You get to choose target creature you control, and when that creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker this turn, draw that many cards. So this is an instant. Instants are for combat. Wait until they don't block and then choose the unblocked creature. Don't choose it beforehand because then they'll just decide to block that one. So, little tip.
Yeah. This is a cute little aura, a shifting shadow for 2 and a red. It enchanted creature. Enchanted creature has haste, and at the beginning of your upkeep, destroy this creature. Reveal cards from the top of your library until you reveal a creature card. Put that card onto the battlefield and attach the shadow to it. Then put all other cards revealed this way on the bottom of your library in a random order. So you're going to just keep upgrading your creatures, hopefully. Kind of fun.
And it's an enchantment aura, so it's a modification.
Yeah.
Another modification in this deck is Snake Umbra. It's an enchantment aura. You get to enchant a creature, gives it +1/+1, and it has whenever this creature deals damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. Nice to put these on creatures that have trample, just because then you know that something is going to get through, even if they block it. Not a super awesome card, but a super awesome card for draw.
This one, Tawashi Guidebot for 4. It's an artifact creature that's a 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, you put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control, and then you can pay for and tap this and draw a card. So this ability costs 1 less to activate for each modified creature you control. So you might just be able to tap it and draw a card, which would be really, really handy. Its main purpose is buffing up your stuff. And
wow. You know, I never even thought about, because that's colorless. It could be free to tap it and draw a card. That is an awesome card draw right there. Another new one, Concord with the Kami. I love the art on this card. Cute little dude. It's an enchantment, and at the beginning of your end step, you get to choose one or more. So if you want to choose them all, you can. You can put a 1/1 counter on a target creature with a 1/1 counter on it. The reason that's a choice is because you might not have anything yet with a 1/1 counter on it. You draw a card if you control an enchanted creature, and you can create a 1/1 colorless spirit creature token if you control an equipped creature. So all of those are like, if you have this can happen. You're going to choose them all if you have.
So whenever you can,
Whenever you can.
Yeah. Then we've got this Kosei Penitent Warlord. He is a 0/5 for 1 and 2 green, an ogre samurai. And as long as it is enchanted, equipped, and has a counter on it, he has whenever Kosei Penitent Warlord deals combat damage to an opponent, you draw that many cards, and Kosei deals that much damage to each other opponent. So you're gonna it's a 0/5, so you need to put some stuff on him, and then do some damage. He's going to be hard to deal with a 5 toughness. You're going to do extra damage to your other opponents that you're not attacking.
This is going to be one that you're just going to randomly play and be like, I guess I'll get a blocker out there, a 0/5.
Yeah.
And for 3, it's fine. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fine. It's fine.
It's fine.
But it won't be fine if they don't deal with it.
Yep.
Speaking of won't be fine if they don't deal with it cards, high impact is our next section. A formula calls for 12. This deck has 18 that we think are like super awesome
Mm-hmm.
cards. So very much some of our other sections are lacking because of putting a bunch of awesome cards, and that's okay if these awesome cards also help you with those other things, which they do. So Ox of Eggnot for 3 and 2 is a 4/2. When it enters the battlefield, discard your hand and draw 3 cards. It would be nice to like put this on the battlefield when it's the last card in your hand so that you just get to
Mm-hmm.
draw. It also has escape, which means exile. You can exile cards from your graveyard, 8 in this case, and recast it for 2. And when it escapes with a 1/1 counter on it. So it escapes modified.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a really good thing too. So nice card for this deck. It does lots of stuff, and it's aggressive. Anything with a big power and a little butt is meant to be swung with. You're just going to swing with it because it can escape.
Yeah, he's a big boy. Then we have little agitator ant. We've seen this in the commander deck before. Can't remember which one, but for 2 and a red, it's a 2/2 insect. At the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2/1/1 counters on a creature they control. Goad each creature that had counters put on it this way.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to say, hey, sure, you can put a counter on your creature, but you have to attack someone other than me.
2
So it's a good
counters.
way to just stir the trouble out there, which is fun.
Yeah. And it's each player, so you get to put 2/1/1 counters. So it just helps
Yeah.
with your modification and makes it so they don't attack you. So it's great.
Yeah.
Cranko, everyone loves a good Cranko. This one is the Tin Street Kingpin for 3 and a 1. It's a 1/2. And when it attacks, you get to put a 1/1 counter on it. So it modifies itself. Then create a 1/1 red goblin creature token equal to Cranko's power. So it's going to keep spitting out goblins that you can then
Mhm.
modify and put counters on. And yeah, Cranko.
And pairing that with something like the Champion of Lambot here, page for paying 1 and 2 green, it's a little 1/1. But creatures with power less than Champion of Lambot's power can't block creatures you control. So it says whenever another creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on Champion of Lambot. So all those little goblins that enter are going to put counters on this card, and suddenly she is a 7/7, and you can't be blocked.
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, guys, a little commander tip: if somebody plays Champion of Lambot, kill it if you
Yep.
can. Like, it's
Yeah.
just don't try and be nice to that person. They will win the game if you don't get rid of
She's
it.
talking about me.
Yep, yep, I am.
I love playing that card.
I have it in a couple of my decks too, and it always Shawnee kills it right
Honestly.
away.
Yeah.
Genesis Hydra for X and 2 green. It's a plant Hydra, but when you cast the spell, reveal the top X cards of your library, and you may put a non-land permanent card with converted mana cost of X or less from among them onto the battlefield, then shuffle the rest into your library. Genesis Hydra also enters with X/1/1 counters on it. So it enters modified. You're going to get X counters. You're going to choose what X is. And then you're going to get a creature from, is it creature or non-land permanent?
Non-land
Non-land
permanent,
permanent.
yeah.
So it doesn't have to be a creature, just a non-land permanent from among them onto
Mm-hmm.
the battlefield straight away. I'm just gonna quickly flip back to our deck breakdown here. You'll notice that our mana curve, you have 21 cards with 3 and 16 cards with 4. So you want probably, I mean, higher is always better, but because you get to look at more cards, but 3 and 4 is a good number to
Decent.
choose for this and still get some good value.
Nice. We have our little Rhino Loyal Guardian here for 4 and a green, a 4/4 trample, which you're going to put stuff on and have trample. Lieutenant, at the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control your commander, you put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. It's going to help you with that modifications if your commander's out, which helps
Each
you some
creature.
more.
That's crazy. Primeval Protector for 10 and a green, which is 11. Crazy.
Mhm.
However, it costs 1 less to cast for each creature your opponents control, which is going to be potentially playing it
10.
for one. It enters the battlefield. You get to put a 1/1 counter on each other creature you control. So not only are you playing it probably for really cheap, you get to modify all your creatures, and it's a 10/10. This card is off the hook. Oh my god, I'm so old.
Oh dear. Then we have a Mage Slayer, which is an equipment for 1 and a red and a green. Whenever equipped creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to defending player. And equip is only 3. So it's a great thing to put onto your primeval protector or something.
Oh my
Something
gosh.
that doesn't matter if they block it, it's still going to deal. It would be what, 10? Yeah. Well, it depends how many counters are on it. Deal 10 damage, even if it's blocked. Like, who cares?
And you can switch it like it's an equipment, so you can move it back and forth
Yeah,
to whichever creature has the most power, and it's
totally.
automatically going to do damage. Like, really high impact card for this deck.
Yeah.
Bear Umbra, enchant creature, gets +2/+2, and whenever this creature attacks, untap all lands you control. Nothing wrong with that. We put it on
Mhm.
here because it not only modifies, but it untaps all the lands, and it's just way more than a rampy card.
Yeah, and it has totem armor as well.
Right, totem armor, yes. If enchanted creature would be destroyed, instead you remove all the damage from it and destroy this aura instead. So it's just got this extra little bit of indestructible for that creature to
Mhm.
start with. Yeah.
It's nice. Rhythm of the Wild for 1, a red and a green. This is a great little enchantment that says your creature spells can't be countered. I always forget that line in that, which is really nice, especially in this deck. And non token creatures you control have Riot. So that means they can enter the battlefield with haste
Mm-hmm.
or get a +1/+1 counter. You're probably going to want to choose the +1 counter because of
Yeah.
the whole modified thing, but you might just want to swing in with the big 10/10 right away.
Mm-hmm.
Why not?
And then we get into our cards that are new and have been made for this deck. So, Kama, the Fractured Calm, is a 3/3 legendary spirit for 4. At the beginning of your end step, I love things that are like just when your end step happens, you get to goad each creatures your opponent control that are enchanted by an aura you control. Put a 1/1 counter on Kami and the fractured claim for each creature goaded this way. So he's gonna get 1/1 counters. The only thing we didn't like about this, which we'll get to when we get into the tweaks, is there's not a
Mhm.
lot of auras in this deck that I would feel comfortable putting on my opponent's creatures, and the ones that are out there in the magic world that are good for opponent's creatures already goad them. But if you can put some of those in, then maybe this gets even better. You can definitely use some of the auras in this to give them to your opponents. Maybe make some deals with them and say, hey, I'm going to enchant your creature, make it super awesome. Do you promise not to attack me with it until everyone else is dead? That type of thing. So,
Oh. The Akee Battle Squad. It is a goblin samurai 6/6 for 5 and a red. Whenever one or more modified creatures you control attack, untap all modified creatures you control. After this combat phase, there is an additional combat phase. This could be mean.
yeah,
This
it's
could
like
change the game.
permanent two
Mm-hmm.
attacks. Permanent.
Yep.
Not even just like
With
you
those
get an
modified
extra attack.
creatures.
That's crazy. That deck.
Yep.
That. I'm not going to enjoy playing against this. Kami of Celebration for 4 and a red is a 3/3, and whenever modified creature you control attacks, exile the top card of your library. You may play that card this turn, and when it says play, that means you still have to pay for it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Whenever you cast a spell from exile, which these would be, you get to put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. So you get to choose which one that is.
So whenever so that would be all of your modified creatures you could exile.
Absolutely.
Okay, okay.
So you swing
Nice.
with 5 modified creatures, you exile 5 cards,
Exile
you can
5
play them.
cards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kumanu Battle Armor for 2 and a red. This is another reconfigure artifact creature. So it's an equipment dog. Look at that good boy there. It's a 2/2 with menace. So, and the equipped creature gets +2/+2 and has menace. And whenever it or an equipped creature or the equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you goad each creature that player controls.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and the reconfigure is 4. So this could be a little creature with menace that's going to do some stuff for you with the goading and things like that. Or you can pay 4 and put it onto one of your other creatures, give it menace and make it stronger and do all this goading shenanigans. So he's going to do a lot of work for you, and he doesn't go away. They have to kill him, which is nice.
And I love Go because it just makes everybody do your work for you. Walking skyscraper for 8. It's an 8/8. It costs you 1 less to cast for each modified creature you control, and it has trample and it has hexproof as long as it's untapped. So if you can figure out a way to give this guy vigilance instead, or if you have that other one where you untap it when it attacks, then it's always going to just untap and have hexproof, which is nice.
Yeah. Smoke Spirit's Aid for X and a red. This is a sorcery. For each of up to X target creatures, create a red aura enchantment token named Smoke Blessing attached to that creature. Those tokens have enchant creature, and when enchanted creature dies, it deals 1 damage to its controller, and you create a treasure token. So we talked about this as far as whether you put it on your own creatures or their creatures. This is one of those ones that you might want to put on theirs, so that when those creatures die, it's going to deal a damage, and you get to create treasures.
Yeah, this one is the one that pairs really well with Kama, the Fractured Calm. So because you're putting auras on there, those auras don't do anything for their creatures at all until actually they don't do anything for their creatures at all ever. And then you also get a benefit when their creatures die, and your Kami would get 1/1 counters on it based on however many
for
you
each
create
of
it. So those two go together, and they have the potential to be really good. But in and of themselves, they're also really good.
All right.
Unquenchable Fury for 2 and a red is an enchantment aura. Each creature has, whenever this creature attacks, it deals X damage to defending player, where X is the number of cards in your hand. When Unquenchable Fury is in their hand, right? Yes. When Unquenchable Fury is put into your graveyard from the battlefield, return it to your hand. So this is an enchantment that's just going to keep coming back and keep doing damage to them over and over and over again. It's going to punish them for having cards in their hand. Of course, you're not going to have a lot of cards in your hand because you're playing red and green, and you don't have a lot of card draw in this deck. So all of those blue players out there are going to be like just drawing cards, and oh, you have 8 cards in your hand or 40 cards in your hand because you have an infinite hand size. Well, guess what? You're dead.
Awesome. Serves you right. Ascendant Acolyte for 4 and a green. It's a little 1/1, but it does enter the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it for each 1/1 counter among other creatures you control. That could be crazy. At the beginning of your upkeep, you get to double the number of 1/1 counters on the Acolyte. So you could be putting a lot of, and you want to make sure you're putting a lot of counters on this dude.
It's just going to be crazy. If you can give this guy trample, well, and there's the card in here already that gives all your creatures trample. So modified creatures. Our next section is a very important section too in and of itself. It is the cards on theme, other win conditions, specialty cards, basically anything that supports your current deck. This deck, our formula says you should have about 10. This deck has 14. So again, this is a very on theme deck. Tauren Muller is our first one for 2 in a red. It's a 2/2 changeling, so it could be any creature type. And whenever an opponent casts a spell, you may put a 1/1 counter on it. So it's just going to keep getting counters. It's automatically modified on their next turn, and is going to keep getting bigger. So nice little support card.
And Forgotten Ancient is similar in that whenever a player casts a spell, you may put a 1/1 counter on it. Except this one, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may move any number of 1/1 counters from Forgotten Ancient onto other creatures. So you can stack them up on there and then spread them out over all your little tokens and stuff. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, it's great.
Everything's
All those little
modified.
goblins that you've created. Spear
Yeah.
Breaker Behemoth is 5 and 2 green, which is kind of expensive for a 5/5 though, and it is indestructible. You can pay
Mm.
one, and target creature with power 5 or greater is indestructible this turn. So it gives other things indestructible, and you're going to have so many options for things that are 5 or greater. And you
Mhm.
can do that at instant speed because it's just a pay ability, and you can do that as many times as you want because it is a pay ability that doesn't tap. So you can give all your 5/5s or 20/20s indestructible if you want.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty high impact, but it is conditional because you don't know if you're going to have anything to target.
Hmm. Grumgully the Generous, similar sort of thing. It's pretty high impact potentially. 3/3 for one and a red and a green. He is a for each other non-human creature you control that enters the battlefield with an additional 1/1 counter on it. So all your little goblin tokens and stuff like that get 1/1 counters on it. So it's potentially pretty strong, but you need lots of stuff coming in for that to happen.
Yeah, but there is
Yeah,
lots of creatures in this deck. Black
definitely.
Blade Reforged is a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each land you control. It's good in this deck because it is giving it +1, like it is modifying it. If you
Hmm.
equip a legendary creature, it only costs 3, but any other creature, it'll cost 7. Um, I don't know. I like this card better in like a Lands Matter deck or something like that, but I mean, it's an okay support card. There's
Yeah,
better ones out there. If you're gonna tweak, that might be one that I would tweak. And
yeah. And Bone Horde, it's for 4. It's an artifact equipment as well with living weapon. So it when it enters the battlefield, you make a black germ and attach this to it. And equipped creature gets +X+X, where X is the number of creature cards in all graveyards. So that's pretty powerful potentially, but it depends on how many creature cards are in everybody's graveyards. So
has the potential
that's
to not be much. So
yeah, equipped 2.
Fire Shrieker is another little equipment for 3. Equipped creature has double strike. And now this has again potential to be really good for you. It only has equip 2, so it's pretty cheap to equip. And if you put it on one of your big dudes, then which you can move around, it's going to do double strike, which is great.
Yeah, so all these equipments are modifying your creatures, which does help
Yep.
that whole theme as well. So, Swift Foot Boots for 2. It's an equipment that your equipped creature has hexproof and haste, and equip is only 1. This is used a lot. Giving something hexproof and haste really makes the game very aggressive. So,
Well, and if you think about the potential there, like that creature that comes in, I can't remember what it was called, comes in with the number of counters on it based on however many counters are on the battlefield. You give that
mm-hmm.
haste, all of a sudden you can swing with it right away, and it's hexproof and it's going to keep getting bigger every turn.
Yeah,
That's a good target
yeah,
for this.
yeah.
Sword of Vengeance is a 3 mana cost equipment. Target creature or equipped creature gets +2/+0, has first strike, vigilance, trample, and haste. So there's that trample that you need, and it has equip 3.
Nice. Elemental Mastery for 3 and a red. It's an aura, enchant creature. Enchanted creature has tap it and put X 1/1 red elemental creature tokens with haste into play, where X is this creature's power. Remove them from game at the end of turn. So this card is used to use your big boy to make a whole bunch of little elemental
So
things, and you
good.
have Grumgully out, so they become bigger, and you're just going to swing with a whole bunch of stuff and kill someone potentially.
Yeah.
Is the plan there?
3 and a green, enchantment
Yeah.
aura, flash. So I love that this enchantment aura has flash. So you can play it at instant speed.
Mhm.
Enchant creature you control. Whenever enchanted creature or another uh, modified creature you control dies, create X 1/1 colorless spirit tokens where X is that creature's power. So one
There
of your
you go.
big things is gonna die. You flash this in and enchant your creature and
Yeah,
create a whole bunch of spirit creature tokens. So and that would
that's
happen at combat damage, so your new ones that you create wouldn't die.
yeah. So that's a good one to put on too. They're
Yeah,
going to get rid of your nice big, what's her name?
champion
She's going to
or
die, the
yeah.
champion. So you say, okay, fine, you're going to kill her, but I'm going to make a whole bunch of stuff and slap you in the face with them next turn.
Yeah.
You could do that. She's gonna die anyways. May as well use
Hmm.
it. Silk Guard for X and a green. It is an instant. Put a 1/1 counter on each of up to X target creatures you control. Auras, equipment, and modified creatures you control gain hexproof until end of turn. Protect them and make them bigger. This is
Hmm.
like the snake skin veil, but way better.
Yeah.
Way better.
Nice new card. And the last one is Invigorator's Hot Spring. It enters the battlefield with 4/1/1 counters on it. Modified creatures you control have haste, so you automatically have hasty dudes. And you can remove a 1/1 counter on it and put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. Activate only as a sorcery and only once each turn. So a way to kind of move counters from your hot spring to your other dudes. Of course, this enchantment, I think there was one that puts a 1/1 counter on modified non. Anyways,
Hmm.
you have the potential of adding counters to it as well, so that you can keep just moving your counters around. So
Proliferate or something like that.
yeah.
Okay, so then we've got land. So the formula calls for 34. This deck has 37. So there's some places that you could maybe do some swapping some stuff out. And then we also wanted to mention that in each of the commander decks, a lot of people are really excited about the special art that is on some of the lands. And each commander deck has, is it two, Leslie?
Two, yeah.
Potential? Oh, for sure, two
For sure, two.
of
This
those.
one has a mountain
There,
and a forest. Yeah.
this one has a mountain and a forest. So, um, ukiyo, ukiyo-e is a genre of
Ukiyo-e.
Japanese art. Yeah. Um, that they're bringing back for on these beautiful, beautiful land cards. So if you're into that stuff, you can certainly buy the commander decks to get those art in there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty awesome. Yeah.
And now we're on to the moment you've all been waiting for, our tweaks. These are
Mhm.
things that we think might make this deck a little bit better based on the formula or just based on things that we think have good synergy. So the first one is Ancestral Mask. Enchant creature, and enchant creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. So because we have some other enchantments, quite a few enchantments and enchantment auras, this will just give that creature that much more.
And it counts of the stuff that other people have too,
Yeah.
which can be bad. Leslie hated me when I had this card out the other day.
Yep.
Keen Sense is another aura for one, though. Enchanted creature. Whenever enchanted creature deals combat damage to an opponent, you may draw a card. So it's a great way to get your drawing some cards going there, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm. And Skeleton Key, for one, is another equipment. So, nice little modifier. This equipment has Skulk, so it can't be blocked. So, remember, we're making our dudes really big. Any way to make him unblockable is even better. Whenever an
Hmm.
equipped creature deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card. And if you do, you discard a card. So, it gets you some card draw, it gets you some unblockable. If you have this card, I would say it's kind of an auto include in this deck.
Guardian Project, if you have it, include it because it's awesome. For 3 and a green, it's an enchantment that whenever a non token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it doesn't have the same name as another creature you control as a creature card in your graveyard, draw a card. It's a commander deck. You're not going to have more of one
Yeah.
card. So, yeah,
That one's a
drawing
really
cards,
expensive card because it is a commander staple and is great
obviously.
in any deck, obviously. But,
Mhm.
you know, it's a good one if you
Yeah,
have it.
yeah.
Zephyr Boots, for one, equipped creature has flying, so give that big creature some flying, and Shauna will scream at you. And whenever a equipped creature deals damage to a player, draw a card and discard a card. So again, it helps you with the card draw, makes your thing a little bit more evasive, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, nice. And it's not that expensive of a card. It's a kind of like a 40
Yeah,
cent card. So
exactly. Then we have the Ogre Head Helm for 1 and a red. I got this in my pre release last night, which was exciting because I want to get this deck. Equipped creature gets +2/+2. It's a 2/2, one of those reconfigure cards. And whenever this card or the whatever you equipped it creature deals damage to a player, combat damage to a player, you may sacrifice it. If you do, discard your hand and draw 3 cards. So it's a great way to refresh things if you want
Mhm.
to.
And that reconfigure is awesome. Like just that it's a creature and an equipment and you can kind of
Mhm.
go back and forth between those two. Any chance
Yeah.
to add a reconfigure card is great.
Yeah, and you can
Argentum,
sacrifice the creature that it's attached to,
yeah,
and then it's still there.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Argentum armor is 6 mana cost, but equipped creature gets +6/+6. And whenever equipped creature attacks, you destroy a target permanent. So there's some removal on a stick for you, and it just buffs up it like great little removal card to add to
Yeah.
this if you need some more removal.
And we really like the basilisk collar. A lot of people do. It's a one cost equipment that equip is two, so not very much. And your equipped creature has death touch and life. Like it's just really, really strong in a deck
Yeah.
like this.
And once you've put your basilisk collars on, there's
Yeah.
another fun little trick that you can do that Shauna
Mhm.
loves to do. Um, and I admire her greatly for it. Pathway arrows, for one, a quick creature has pay 2 and tap this creature to deal 1 damage to target creature. If a colorless creature, or sorry, if a colorless creature is dealt damage this way, tap it. Doesn't matter because
Doesn't
you're going to
matter.
put that, you're going to use your thing that basilisk collar is attached to and just do death touch damage to something and it just automatically kills them. So nice way. The pathway arrows is a great way if you have death touchers to kind of just do like ping
Yeah.
ping. If you don't put
Just fun.
basilisk collar in there, don't put pathway arrows in there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a fun thing. Predatory impetus. We really like the impetuses for removal. They're really fun. This one is for 4 and a green. It's an aura that enchanted creature. Enchanted creature gets +3. +3 must be blocked if able and is goaded. So this is one of those ones that you're going to put onto your opponent's creatures. So to support that card that we were talking about earlier,
Mm-hmm.
trying to find stuff that is going to help you by putting it onto other people's creatures because then they can't attack you. They can
Yeah.
attack everyone else. So
Yeah. And that card, I can't remember what it's called now, but it automatically goads things that are enchanted by your things. But
right.
so that's
Yes.
not, but the fact that it also um gets
Has to
you
be
1/1
blocked.
counters on that
Mhm.
creature is great. So shiny impetus is another one just like that. It gives it +2/+2, and whenever enchanted creature attacks, you get to create a treasure token. So you're gonna get some ramp
Mhm.
in there as well.
Yeah. Lust for War is for 2 and a red enchant creature. Whenever enchanted creature becomes tapped, Lust for War deals 3 damage to that creature's controller, and they have to attack with that creature. So number one, it's goaded, so that's whatever. With if you have that other card out, and they have to attack with it, and it's gonna deal 3 damage to them. So it's just a way of draining their life by messing with them a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bloodshed Fever, for one, enchant creature attacks each turn if able. So
Yeah.
again, you're going to put that on their creature. It's going to make them attack each turn by itself. It's not as good because they can attack you, but if you have what's its pickle on the I should probably go back and figure out what card we're talking about on the
That card.
battlefield. I think it's like I can't pronounce it.
It's a
Enchanted
strange
creature.
name.
It's
Yeah.
goaded. So yeah.
And then you've gone to all this work to build up this board and you want to protect it a little bit. If you have it, it's a very expensive card, but if you have it, Heroic Intervention is just a great green card that you go to all this work to build up a board. You want to protect everything, permanents you control again, hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. So it's just one of those instances that it's expensive, but if you have one, this is a great deck to use it in because you've put so much resources into those cards that you have out. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're creating all kinds of like you're going wide and big. Like wide
Yes.
and tall is this deck. Um
Yeah.
so yeah, those are our tweaks. We would love to hear what you have to say. That's it for this time. Thank you so much for watching.
Mm-hmm.
We are available on YouTube and Twitch. Come check us out. Also, connect
Yeah.
with us on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. We'd love to see how you would tweak this deck. Give us some options. And that's it for this time. But
Yeah.
in the meantime,
Tap those magic cards and have fun doing it. Bye.
bye everybody.